This podcast is a production of the Brickyard Network, an extension of the Archie Bray Foundation for the Ceramic Arts. To find out more about our lineup of ceramic podcasts, visit brickyardnetwork.org.
Hey, this is Erin with Cornell Studio Supply, located in the Gem City of Dayton, Ohio. As a proud sponsor of this episode and the Brickyard Network, we are happy to help you with all your pottery and ceramic sculpture needs by providing the best customer service and world-class workshops. Visit CornellStudioSupply.com for 20% off the largest ceramic book selection of all time. At Cornell Studio Supply, we are owned and operated for potters by potters.
Hi, my name is Kerry Nathanson. I'm a current long-term resident at the Archie Bray Foundation. I just wanted to invite you to come check out our show Push at Modern West Fine Art Gallery in Salt Lake City. It's happening March 25th to the 30th. This show features work from all our current residents at the Bray. We're having a reception Thursday, March 27th from 6 to 9 p.m. For more information, you can visit nsega.net or find the exhibition in the Nsega app.
Welcome to the Tales of a Red Clay Rambler podcast, featuring interviews with culture makers from around the world. This is Ben Carter. I'm going to be your host. If you'd like more information on the show, please visit our website, talesofaredclayrambler.com. Welcome back to episode 540 of the podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Today I am joined by Kevin Clancy, who is an artist and the curator of Ceramics Takeover Wheeling, a multi-day celebration of ceramics in Wheeling, West Virginia, that's going to be happening later this month, February the 20th through the 23rd. In our interview, we talk about the history of the city, how creative economy can be a catalyst for urban development, and the exhibitions and workshops that make up the event. We also end the conversation talking about Clancy's work in fibers, where he deconstructs flags as a basis for social commentary. If you'd like to find out more, you can go to ceramicstakeoverwheeling.com. You can also check out his website and Instagram, which is americannibalism.com. I wanted to mention before we get to that interview that I will be teaching a workshop at Snow Farm in Williamsburg, Massachusetts this summer, August the 14th through the 17th. If you're interested in learning about building layers through mark making in pattern, please join us for a week full of experimentation and community. You can register for that at the link in the show notes or go to snowfarm.org. Without further ado, we'll get to the interview. I thought we would start by just talking about the history of Wheeling. Can you tell us a little bit about the town?
So Wheeling came to prominence with the creation of the nation's first sort of interstate roadway, National Road. It ran from Maryland through into the west, and Wheeling really saw a lot of growth through the Ohio River and the National Road, mainly in steel, glass, ceramics, and tobacco. We have a really famous cigar manufacturer here. And but this was when Wheeling was also part of Virginia. West Virginia didn't exist at that time. So it was during the Civil War, the northern counties of Virginia voted to secede, and Wheeling was then the capital of the new state, West Virginia. And then that just sort of started to grow from there, sort of like how Pittsburgh has the Carnegies. We had a couple of very industrious families, in particular the Ogilbys, who were iron people, and the Stifels, who were textile and leather people. And the Stifel Center, where the show is, and Ogilby Park are part of a larger organization called the Ogilby Institute. And essentially, these folks were very interested in arts and culture, and they used their money to fund and influence arts and culture in the city. And the main reason why, with the decline of all those industries, the city really didn't go under, and we still have all these great cultural objects and heritages, mainly because of their investments. So Ogilvy, they have a 1,600-acre estate. They deeded that to the city, and that's the largest self-supporting public park, the only self-supporting public park in the entire country, actually. And we're talking about zoos, golf courses, lodges, cabins, ice skating, pools, like this amazing recreational experience. And then the Stifel family, they built a crazy mansion called Edinburgh, and they deeded their estate to the city as an art center. So we have very large gallery space. We have school for craft, the typical things like drawing and painting, and then ceramics, stained glass, woodworking, printmaking, jewelry making, some metals, and a little bit of textile. So we're seeing the sort of cultural shift, I think, for the city kind of trying to come back and reinvent itself, maybe much like Pittsburgh did. And it's a really beautiful city. It has I mentioned this to you the other day, it has the largest concentration of Victorian homes per capita in the whole country. Just, there was so much money back then when everything was kind of happening on the river. The city was very affluent, and all that architecture still exists. And the city's rather small for a city. So a lot of the area is still within the historic district. So those houses are still there, and just waiting for people to fix them up, which is why I like it here.
I think about this town specifically is it follows kind of a Rust Belt trend, which is that you have like industrial booms, which were early 1800s. Because when I was researching that road, like the first national road, in my mind I was like, oh, that must have been, I don't know, 1700s. But it was in like 1810, I think, like sometime in the early 1800s, which is not that long ago. So from 1810 to 1910 and later, you have this massive boom. But then, like a lot of Rust Belt towns, as industry changed, transportation changed, the town starts to, the only word I can think of is rust. Like it starts to decay a little bit and lose some of that energy. So can you talk about the idea of cultural rebirth for a town and why that's a good idea?
I think if you look at, I mean, Pittsburgh is like our sister city, right? We're only an hour away from Pittsburgh. And what they have done as far as knowledge economies are concerned, and the way that they've revitalized certain neighborhoods, and you see arts and culture springing up, and bars and restaurants, and not just dives, as much as I love dives, really sort of experimental kinds of things. And you see that, particularly in Wheeling, like we have this beautiful waterfront, but previously, it was very industrialized and it was for industry. And now we have the Heritage Port, and there's some interesting restaurants growing up along the river, and it's changing. And I see that as a good sign that we're trying to move in the right direction and bring new young people here. I'm a teacher, so when I think about what happens when you leave school, there's 10,000 students among a dozen colleges within maybe 30 minutes of us. If you leave school and you don't have access to the same things that you had there, then you will leave. And where will you go? You'll go to a place like Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or Cleveland, bigger places with more opportunity. And I see the city changing what opportunity looks like here. And I think more people are staying. Also, it doesn't hurt that West Virginia has some of the lowest housing prices in the entire country. That's where creative people want to be, right? That's how it starts. You need a place to go, but you also need infrastructure. And I think that the Stifel Center, I mean, it's been around for, I think this is our 95th year doing arts and culture in the city. So we've been around for a long time. We're trying to sort of reinvent what we're doing and who we are trying to bring into the fold. I'm a younger curator, so I'm trying to change a little bit of sort of what we're offering and who we can bring in to offer other things.
And part of your process has been organizing Ceramics Takes Over Wheeling, which is a website as well as an event. Can you talk about how that event started and what your goals are with it?
We have a local potter here, Lambros Solaris is his name. He was a ceramics teacher at West Liberty University and for 30 years. Lover of pottery, lover of ceramic history, really wants to bring wheeling back to this ceramic powerhouse for different reasons, right? Back in the day, the hand blown glass and ceramic work was mainly utilitarian, and it was for your dinner set, things like that. He wants to showcase just the breadth of ceramic works being made around the country. So Lambros had this idea for Ceramics Takeover Wheeling, where we would try to involve as many organizations and institutions as possible across the city over the entire 2-month run of the show. It's up for 6 to 7 weeks. And we would have different openings every weekend, and we would have workshops. So we're offering opportunities to artists to show. There's a great soup bowl fundraiser for the soup kitchen. We do a mug pop-up so people can send mugs from all around the country for exchange. And that was really all centered around Lambros's, amazing. I cannot say enough how important he is to this. He put up all of the money to allow this to happen. So the prize purse is for Earth and Fire and for the Intercollegiate Show. He donated that for several years to kind of get the show moving. And you can't really understate how much a $4,000 top prize for a ceramic show actually brings people just out of the woodworks. And it did. It absolutely worked. And we are getting incredible growth. In the first year, we had 34 states and 300 works sent in. This year, we had 41 states and 400 works sent in. So it just continues to grow. And we have to turn more and more people away, as we can only showcase so much. And we also went to NCECA last year, which is the National Conference for the Education of Ceramic Arts. And seeing how they ran the conference as this 4-day experience, you're going to the classes and the talks and you're seeing these shows, but then there were so many pop-ups that happened around the city, just people seizing that opportunity to put something together, that on the drive back from Virginia, we were talking about it. And I said, what if we reorganize this into a 4-day event? People can't come in every weekend. People in Wheeling can experience it every weekend. But if you are in Texas and you got a piece in the show and you want to come see it, how can we really incentivize that? So we reorganized it this year to be this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you can explore the entire city, see 9 exhibition openings from 9 different galleries, explore Ogilvy Park and their lodge. It's just whining and dining really across the whole city. And because we are a smaller city, we actually have the opportunity to really see everything and get a real feel for the cultural sort of rebirth that we were talking about a minute ago.
If people want to come to this, it's happening for the first event's February the 20th. But how do this is a dumb question, but how do people actually get there? Like, do you recommend they fly to Pittsburgh and drive, or how do you recommend people get there?
Pittsburgh's definitely the easiest way in if you are scattered across the country. It's the biggest international airport near us, and we're only 50 minutes from the airport itself, and it's like a straight shot. And there's a whole bunch of really oddly, we have like the largest Holiday Inn, the most foot trafficked Holiday Inn in the whole country. It's weird. I don't know. And then the park, we have a lodging package through the park, which is pretty, I think they done a great job, given that we have, there are tickets available for all of the demos and the talks and the throwdown. And if you sort of take that into consideration, plus staying at the park and the meals and things, it's pretty crazy. So we're hoping that people will come in and stay and see the whole thing. Certainly traveling from Pittsburgh, we have a lot of folks coming in from the city because we've partnered with a couple of larger ceramic organizations in town, which I think is going to help kind of grow the awareness, at least locally, because regionally we are so close to so many places. So Pittsburgh's the closest, but certainly if you're flying into Columbus or Erie or Cincinnati, these are all very, very close to us.
Yeah, you mentioned there's going to be demo and workshops. That's going to be Sunshine Cobb, George Rodriguez, and I think was Rebecca Harvey also giving a lecture of some sort?
Yeah, yeah.
So you as an organizer, how did you think about like making the most engaging event in that 4-day period?
The idea, again, stemming out of NCECA, was sort of could we spread the pieces of the puzzle out equally across the city and then stagger the openings in such a way that everyone could see everything and that you wouldn't have to choose. And right now, the way it's set up, the first show is at 5 p.m. on Thursday, but then the next show opens at 6 p.m. and the next show opens at 7 p.m. And then there's a cocktail hour at 9. So like everything just sort of builds on itself, and that we try to use this kind of scaffolding to make sure that everyone could do everything. We intentionally worked with the park to use conference rooms for the demos and the talks this year. In years past, we've done it at the Stifle, but there is a cap. Like there's only so many people we can fit in the room. And we're hoping that since this is this sort of back-to-back-to-back idea that that the people, there'll be more people than we can accommodate, which is a great problem to have. We'll have to figure that out if we get there. And then also we've worked with the park to use their trolley system, which is amazing. They have a trolley that works, 1,600 acres. They take you around, but it doesn't run during February. So we spoke to them and said, hey, what if you let us have it? And we can drop people off in these centralized locations and they can walk everywhere because we've set the evenings up in a way that everything is sort of within that 5-minute locus. And then they'll pick you back up and take you right back to the park for cocktail parties and things like that.
Can you plug the website and other ways people could register or find out more about it?
Yeah, so ceramicstakeoverwheeling.com is the main sort of information hub for everything that we have going on. You can see all the past Earth and Fire exhibitions are on there, and then all of the events are on there, which have direct links to our website. OIonline.com is Ogilvy Institute, which is our sort of parent organization. The Stifle is an organization underneath them. You can register through their website. You can also call the main office, which the number is listed in both the Ceramics Takeover website and on the OI website as well. And then you can also just show up. It's nice that people have been, if you are listening to this, thank you for signing up. Because we have a rough idea of what to actually, how much coffee we want to put out for the demo and thing. But no one will be turned away. Like if you come, you can pay at the door. Not a problem. And that happens every year.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art. The collection exists as an online resource for research and inspiration, featuring photos of over 4,000 objects made by over 1,000 artists. The images are high quality and can be used with no permission required, making them a great resource for students and teachers. To find out more, visit rosenfieldcollection.com.
Are you making the journey out to Salt Lake City this year for NCECA? The Archie Bray Clay business is excited to see you all there and can't wait to share some great new tools, glazes, merch, and the always popular Bray Patch and Braypoxy. This year, we'll be hosting live book signings with authors Ben Carter and Sunshine Cobb, all at Booth 5 right up front in the expo hall. To stay on top of new product updates, promotions, or to sign up for our newsletter, visit us at archiebrayclay.com.
Well, I wanted to switch gears and talk about your work. You actually do a lot of processes, but I wanted to talk about the ritualized work that you did leading up to the 2016 election. There was a piece you did where you slowly, over 8 years, unwound a flag. And I think that this describes both your material and the way you approach it, but also this idea of like a meta-narrative about politics. So can you talk about that piece, what the idea of deconstruction means to you?
So I took apart a single flag in one sitting in about 60 hours, so over the course of like 3 days. And that sort of started me on this trajectory of material exploration, particularly of U.S. flags. I've also dabbled in currency, U.S. currency as well. I'm fascinated by fiber and paper, and then like what the flag itself sort of stands for. We have this idea of what it is, but you also can't separate its history and its politics and anything anyone's ever said about or done with it. It's all still kind of tied up in that. So there's this rich, incredibly deep history worth exploring and kind of dissecting. So I started this project called The Fabric of Our Reality, where I would take apart the flag every day for an hour a day, and I would look at the news cycle daily, and I would post relevant, what I considered to be relevant and important headlines that kind of detailed where the country was at. And I made the decision to do the project in 16, regardless of the winner. I just thought, it's just going to be an exploration of sort of political media and willpower in many ways. And that was Donald Trump's first term. And then I thought, well, I'll keep doing it to see if then there will be a Democrat in office, and could I do it for 8 to 12 years? I didn't really have an end goal in mind. And I honestly, I got so burned out, like just the media changed every single day, something else, and I think it really spoke to sort of the fatigue that I think a lot of people end up going through. Because I saw it. I was very active in the news and looking and reading about politics and kind of trying to share opinions and looking for ways to get involved. And I did a residency where I bought a marquee, and I showed the news like on this marquee outside of the windows where I was de-threading the flag every day. And yeah, I just got buried, man. And I had to stop doing it. It was like hurting my brain. But then when I look back on it, it really does sum up kind of our political landscape in a lot of ways. And taking it apart, I found some interesting things out during the project. So I like to use the term de-thread, which turns out is actually a Twitter X term where someone deletes a parent post so that all of the successive posts underneath it become non sequitur and it makes no sense, which is an information obfuscation kind of tool. And then my broader work in deconstruction, I started to think about it very, very much medically. I said dissecting earlier. I like terminology like that, where you're kind of trying to explore the intricate pieces of wholes, because that's what we do in school, right? We dissect objects to learn how they work, to put them back together in better ways. So suturing, like the idea of fibers and a lot of the terms that we have, sewing things back up. So I was hopeful that it was going to lead me to some sort of profound, revelation that was positive. But unfortunately, I just got burned out from the whole thing. And now I have several hundred gallons of loose thread, 5,000 stars. I just have this absurd amount of material.
Well, what's funny is I thought when we talked about this, you would talk about how hard the labor of it was, like de-threading the flag. It's like a lot of hand labor, but it was the intellectual labor of the news part of it, of the project, that was overwhelming.
Well, necessity breeds invention, right? Like when I started, it was very difficult to take it apart. And then I just slowly found tools. Like I had an old sheet metal clamp, and I realized that I could sheet metal clamp the fiber, and I could pull threads out, and then it was held in place. And then I realized that embroidery needles have slightly dulled points, so I could drag it along the stripe, and it would grab the last thread or two, and I could pull it out super fast. So I became very efficient at doing it, which then also led to some interesting things where you would find that the fabric had been sewn the wrong direction. Like you're expecting the fiber to run the long way, but maybe it was like a scrap piece. And so when they sewed it, it ended up being the short way. and then it was impossible to remove. It would take 2-3 times as long to do. I learned a lot about flag construction from that project. Yeah, the labor was really difficult in the beginning, but yeah, I just figured out how to make it mindless. Really, I mean, I love screen printing. I really do like repetitive processes. You kind of get lost in it. It's very much a meditation. But it was definitely the news that broke me, man.
You have worked with flags with other projects, and I'm interested in the flag as a symbol because like flags are made from common materials, but as soon as they have the color, the pattern, and the shape of whatever the national emblem is, it takes on a whole nother meaning. It's a symbol that as a nation we've agreed means something, when in reality the materials have very little meaning in and of themselves. And I think about some of the subtle changes you've done to other flags, like one of them it was a American United States flag that you then cut holes out of in the X that's in the Confederate flag. So can you talk about that piece, like turning the American flag into the Confederate flag or back and forth, how you think about that?
That piece was actually in response to the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. I find it really difficult and antithetical to understand folks waving American flags next to like Nazi symbolism while also telling brown people to go home. That is like totally against what the flag is supposed to stand for, what we've all agreed it means, right? Land of opportunity. I mean, all you have to do is read the base of the Statue of Liberty. Give us, you're tired, you're hungry, you're poor. Like that's what the country was built on. And I was thinking about, I have a bunch of pieces that are based around Confederate symbolism. So I just find flags in general to be super fascinating, mainly for the point that you made. If I make my own flag out of just random materials, when I sew the 50th star on, does it cease to be mine? Like it suddenly becomes like the collective's. And when I was working on that object, I was thinking about like orientation of the flag. So it's backwards, which is a direct reference to the military. If you ever look at a military uniform, the flags are always backwards because they're meant to be marching in the wind. So that's a symbol of force. And then to remove it, it's not directly there, right? It's been cut out, but the flag's being manipulated. And if you know what you're looking at, then you understand the symbolism. And I think that there's this sort of quiet, ghostly image that I was thinking about when doing it. It's not directly in your face, but it is there. And I think that Charlottesville kind of shows that, it's been, you hear people say, well, that was 80 years ago, but has it really been that long? Obviously not. And then the piece was called "The Palpable Ignorance of the Divine Will," which was a quote from a pastor, a Southern Baptist pastor. And there was a book I read where they were discussing why, it was the explanations for why sort of rural, poor white America would have fought in the Confederacy when they had nothing to gain from slaveholding. And the argument that this pastor makes is that the North was exhibiting the palpable ignorance of the divine will because the Bible expressly discusses slavery and slaveholding. And that's sort of, they used a religious message to coax folks into participating. And I found that to be super fascinating as well. I don't really touch on religion in my work. And that was like a nod to some interesting historical sort of data that I thought, I'm a teacher. So I don't want the work to be didactic in a way, but I also do want to have enough stuff there that if you wanted to, you could look up that quote and you could read that man's sermon, and maybe that opens you up to exploring other things like I did. I kind of fell down a rabbit hole a little bit.
Through working with flags, has your perspective on the nation changed? Do you feel patriotic?
Personally, I think that there's nothing more patriotic than criticizing your government. If we are the strongest nation in the world, then we can stand to be critiqued and to have, the wool pulled away. I think that ceding this symbol to folks that do not truly believe in it is a terrible idea. And I want to wave it proudly because I still believe in the egalitarian promise, even if it is so absurd that it's never going to happen. it's a carrot dangling in front of your face. I'm not going to sit down and die. I'm going to keep walking towards that carrot. So I think change is so incremental. And it seems like it's so hopeless, but the symbol is a symbol of hope wielded appropriately. And I like manipulating it mainly to discuss its historical relevance, but also as a way of putting it back together in a form that maybe this is a better form. Maybe this is a better and more interesting way to look at it and think about it. But yeah, when I drive through rural West Virginia and I see a lot of flags, they generally are next to Trump flags and Confederate flags, and they just don't mesh in my mind with what the country is supposed to mean. When I was taught, civically what it was about. Yeah, I don't want to cede it, and I think that we're being shown this. The folks who wave the flag around and talk the loudest are trying to talk about what it means to be a true American, and they're trying to steal it. And I don't. It belongs to me.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I've so given up that hearing you talk about this and seeing your work, actually, there is a sense of hope there politically that I didn't have before I was researching you. So, and boy, I need that hope right now. So I'm glad you're making this work.
Yeah, I mean, it's very provocative. I'm not trying to do it to provoke people, but I used to be a painter. I mean, I used to paint American flags, kind of like Jasper Johns was a huge influence on me growing up. I loved his work, and I was making sort of political paintings around different ideas. And it's so easy to look at a painting of a flag and just say, "No, it's political. I'm going to look away. I don't want to engage with that." But what I found is that when you actually manipulate legitimate U.S. flags, everyone's got something to say. Nobody looks away. Everybody wants to talk about it. And what I came to realize during my grad program when I was in Savannah, so I was in the South, and of course Savannah is like sort of a very liberal city, and there's a lot of arts and culture there. But I found out that flags and flag art in general is really a mirror on the viewer. It doesn't say a lot about me. It says a lot about you. And I learned to shut up and listen to other people tell me about my work, because it was very fascinating to hear their thoughts. And it was a deep dive into their mind and their soul in a lot of ways.
To wrap up, can you plug your website so people can see more of the work?
You can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky now at Americannibalism, which is the word American and cannibalism as a portmanteau. It's AMERICANNIBALISM, and at americannibalism.com.
Well, thanks so much. Good luck with the event.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I look forward to hearing it.
I'd like to thank Kevin for coming on the show, and I also wanted to plug that 2 Archie Bray folks are going to be a part of Ceramics Takeover Wheeling. I think you heard us talk about the workshop by Sunshine Cobb and Rebecca Harvey. If you'd like to be a part of those, you can register at ceramicstakeoverwheeling.com. I wanted to take a minute to thank our sponsors, the Rosenfield Collection of Functional Ceramic Art, Cornell Studio Supply, and Bray Clay. I did want to mention that I'm going to be at the Bray Clay booth at NCECA this year to do a book signing. That's going to be on the Thursday and Friday of the NCECA conference in the Expo Hall. That's booth number 5, so come on out for that. If you would like to be a part of NCECA this year, we are having the podcast room as we did in previous years. There's going to be 8 live tapings that'll happen over the course of Thursday and Friday. So if you'd like to find out the lineup, that's NCECA.net. I'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you all for tuning in. If you'd like more information on the artists on the show, or if you'd like more information about the workshops and events that I'll be having in the next couple months, You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under Carter Pottery. Another great way to support the show is to leave me a comment on iTunes. To do that, search Tales of a Red Clay Rambler under iTunes podcasts, and you'll find a page that's linked to our show. Thank you guys for the support.